Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Harikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vanchakalpatrivisha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat Pranam devotees. So today is Ram Nomi, and by the grace of Guru and Guru Vargas, I was able to this morning in our regular 10:30 Zoom class share much of what I've gleaned from our Guru Vargas regarding Sri Ramayan Katha, Sri Valmiki Ji, and the commentaries of many of those who have commented on the Ramayana. I wanted to take the chance, this is after class, you can hear my voice is a little hoarse from the class. Again, I'm still getting over a cold to some degree. But I wanted to take a chance to do a very brief video as a follow-up to a video I did earlier as a response to Swami Padmanabha, and two articles, one on the half worth of a woman, and the other considering statements of Srila Prabhupada regarding minority community, especially those of African American descent. So I've already written in the comments on the page of those articles addressing both Swami Padmanabha and Krishna Chandra Prabhu, who is according to Maharaj, he's the original author of the article, so I did address to both persons. And again, that address was simply following a line of thought that I had gleaned from both seeing the articles, having some personal knowledge, at least about Swami Padmanabha Maharaj, and not knowing Krishna Chandra Prabhu very well, but just from what I gleaned from the article, I gave a response. That response, of course, was heartfelt. It was actually very much full of affection, very much full of love. And one of the things that sometimes we don't consider when we request open dialogue and honest dialogue is honesty. Because sometimes we only see honesty, love, affection, and many other adjectives that were used actually in the article and in the follow-up video to the article. We only tend to see those very nice adjectives in relation to our own perspective. And we somehow inadvertently or unintentionally, given the benefit of the doubt, or actually tend to think of any other opinion as being, someone sent me a video recently, which I did not have time to view in full, I'm going to be honest, but they wanted me to concentrate on a section where this particular video and questions about it were brought up, and there was also the idea that Maharaj may have had to face a lot of pushback, and that in that pushback there were many people who were outright very offensive or very, very mean-spirited, etc. Of course, anybody can go and look at the video that I made in my response, and obviously understand that certainly must have not been in relation to me, because I simply stated my feelings regarding Guru Sadhu Sastra, my analysis of the psychology that sometimes goes into making presentations from a certain perspective, and couching language in a certain way as to validate our perspective through the use of what's called a double trilogy, which is trilogy of good and trilogy of bad, which essentially, I'm not going back to the whole video, you can reference that video, which is essentially using words like love, affection, hope, prayer, integrity, bravery, courage, all in relation to one's perspective, and minimizing the same in relation to those who may have a different view, a different perspective that may challenge our sensibilities about what we've presented. So what I wanted to do here was simply make a very clear understanding of where Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra are coming from in this regard, and then it is completely up to every individual how they want to align with that. So let me begin by addressing the premise, which is that both Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra have some fallibility in that they can make mistakes, in that they may say things which are influenced from the material modes of nature, because the insinuation in the article was that maybe many of the statements are influenced by cultural dynamics that either they are born with, grew up with, and of course in contemporary psychology, which doesn't necessarily deal with the spiritual paradigm, these things are brought out. Everybody's shaped by their cultural influences. But Sastra is very clear when it comes to speaking about those who are the agents of Bhagavan, especially those who are agents of Bhagavan in pure capacity. So I will read some verses from Sastra just to set the table, and then we can further discuss what we will do in regard to these statements. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 2, verse number 86, it is mentioned there, Brahma Pamada Vipralipsa Karna Pavatava Arsha Vigyaya Vakye Nahi Dosha Eshaba. So the English translation of that is mistakes, illusion, cheating, and defective perception do not occur in sayings of authoritative sages. So there are 10 kinds of praman, and one is called arsha, which means we accept as a praman the actual sayings of sadhus. Why? Exactly because of this verse, that their sayings, being begun, being realized statements, do not carry the import or energy of material dealings. If the sadhu, guru, and sastra can be afflicted by material influence, then there is no real shelter of absolute transcendence in our experience. You understand? In other words, if there's not the ability to find absolutism, infallibility in something, it leads to relativity completely. Because if you can pick and choose what you will accept as being absolute and discard what you don't feel is absolute, then the absolute perspective lies with you. And then that requires that then everybody else, more or less, if they want absolute consideration, especially when it comes to Saranagati, would really have to defer to the person who has a perspective that actually what is absolute and what is relative will be determined by me. So, another verse is stated, Yasha Deve Parabhaktir Yata Deve Tata Guru Taishati Katita Hi Artaha Prakashanti Mahatmanaha. The conclusive essence of the scriptures is revealed only to those great souls. So even Sastra is adding a degree of adjective to those who have this quality. And I'll go on to mention the quality here. The conclusive essence of the scriptures is revealed only to those great souls who have parabhakti onto both Bhagavan and who have equal amount of bhakti for Sri Gurudev. So the parabhakti that you have towards Bhagavan, who we accept as absolute, infallible, that same is attributed to great souls, because many adjectives were used in the articles like brave, courageous, integrity, hopeful, prayerful, loving, heartfelt. But when it addressed those who may challenge the conception that was being espoused, no adjectives were used. Yet in Sastra we find adjectives like those who are Mahatma, those who are great souls, who accept the infallibility of Sastra and Guru in an equal way. So I'll read it again. The conclusive essence of the scriptures is revealed only to those great souls, which also is stated here that only to those who see with this vision is the actual purport and import of Sastra revealed. So therefore, there's a simultaneous statement being made that unless you have this kind of parabhakti for both Bhagavan and Guru, the true meaning of Sastra will not even be revealed to you. So now I have to say again, will I take the weight of this statement of Sastra, or will I defer to the subjective experience and opinions of those who speak differently? In other words, where will the metric be established? What is to be accepted? Like when we do Saranagati, Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Vivajanam Rakshishati Vishwas, Goptave Varanam Tata. Amanakshep Karpanya Saranga Saranagati. So here it's saying, in great humility, right? Because in the article also it spoke so much about vulnerability. And I'll read something else that was a comment in one of the articles coming up, where they spoke about vulnerability and the gloriousness of vulnerability. How much vulnerability must you have to surrender completely in an attitude of pratikulyasha? I will only do a sankalp, a vow to accept what is accepted and proposed by Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. How much does it mean that I have to give up my independence and surrender to that? And pratikulyasha vivajanam. Anukulyasha sankalp, pratikulyasha vivajanam. How much integrity, heartfelt prayer, humility, vulnerability does it take to give up the false egoism, the sense of your own control? Because remember, ahamkara is the sensibility that I have some control over the dynamics, either materially or spiritually. Of course, Bhagavad Gita informs us, Prakriti Kriya Manani Gunai Kamani Savasha, ahamkara vimuratma. Your dependence on ahamkara is a state of bewilderment. Katam iti manyate. Actually, in the material paradigm, things are carried out by the modes, which is why I leaned into the idea that many of these feelings are generated from the mode of material goodness at best. Because it's not a truly spiritual paradigm, because the truly spiritual paradigm comes about, according even to this verse, when there's a full sense of surrender, which is the ultimate vulnerability, ultimate bravery, to give yourself to something, understanding it to be absolute. Not just Bhagavan, but here it says Bhagavan and Guru. Now, I'm not getting into dynamics of individual personal experiences with either unqualified guru, unqualified disciple, any mixture of the two, any situation that may have been a myriad of other situations which gave that perception if it wasn't true. I'm not dealing with that. I'm only dealing with the reality that any bona fide Sadguru, their persona should be accepted as that of the agency of Bhagavan in our purview. And to those great souls who see like that, then the real meaning of Shastra is revealed to them, which is perhaps why they don't feel a material sense of umbrage to statements that are made in Shastra, because they understand the actual import and purport of the Shastra, the actual intention of the Shastra. Again, it is mentioned, give me 1 second, I just want to go over these verses carefully because I want to point out where they are. I don't know if I pointed out where that verse was, so let me go back and do that. So that verse comes, let me see if I can find it, because I'm quoting it from Shlokamrita. Oh, this is from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. It is also quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is also quoted in Jaiva Dharma. So in so many different bona fide sastras, this verse is quoted. Now, our own Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our mool praman for everything. We accept Srimad Bhagavatam as pramanam amalam, spotless evidence for any conceptions we have in bhakti. Acharyam mam viganyam navamanyeta kahichit na martya burasuyeta savadevamayo guru. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. And here it is mentioning, O Uddhav. So this is Krishna's instruction to Uddhav. The spiritual master, so this is Krishna himself speaking. The spiritual master is known as my very Swarup. Spiritual master is not some relative agency of material and spiritual components. Krishna is saying, there's another verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 158, Jive Sakshat Nai Chaitya Guru Rupe, Shri Krishna Hoy, Shiksha Guru Hoy, Krishna Mahant Swarupe. That Krishna is the actual manifestation of Antaryami. So here it's also saying, O Uddhav, the spiritual master is known to be my very Swarup. At no time should one neglect or disrespect Sri Guru as an ordinary man. So now two things are added here. Neglect and disrespect are added to the conception of considering Guru to be an ordinary person. And it's saying, Navamanyeta kahichit. Avamanyeta means this idea of disrespect or neglect. thinking they're ordinary person. How? Na Marcha Buddha Suyeta. So to think that the spiritual master Marcha means is like an ordinary human being, right? Not the Swarupa of Bhagavan in our purview. This is some reflection of what is called anasuyata. Anasuyata means some envy. Envy is not always a gross thing. Envy is actually a quality, our acharyas have explained, of the need to put one's self-interest over that of others. That may be overt or that may be very subtle. So the idea that I need to put into play, because of my personal experiences or otherwise, a dynamic in which Guru is seen with some degree of relativity and fallibility, or he has expertise and infallibility only in one paradigm but not in another paradigm, all of this would come under the category of a sensibility that my sense, my antakaran composed of egoism, mind, and intelligence has concluded this about Guru. Here in the verse it's saying, oh, be very careful of this. Navamanyeta kahichit. Not at any time should you consider like this. Na marcha buddha suyeta. Right? Don't have the buddhi, the intelligence, mind, antakara, and ego experience that Guru is marked like an ordinary person. Rather, Sava Deva my own Guru. Now, rather this is Atishoki Alankar. Atishoki Alankar means sometimes to make an emphasis in Sastra, a kind of hyperbole may be used. Right? I've not read, so I don't want to declare that because I've not read a commentary in which this is declared to be that. Right? But the statement itself, Sava Deva my own Guru. Guru is the sum total of all the Devatas. So what it's essentially saying is every single aspect of our material experience even has been awarded control by Bhagavan to some Devata. So it's saying the Guru is the sum total of all of that. Therefore, whether you're considering in the spiritual paradigm or in the material paradigm, you should see Guru in a light, Sava Deva my own Guru. Guru is the sum total of all the demigods who control all the material facilities. So the idea that there can be a kind of material analysis of Guru and a spiritual analysis is completely rejected in this verse. Similarly, we're singing every morning Saksha Hari Dvainal Samashta Shastri. All Shastras declaring the infallibility of God based on the fact that he is Priya Eva Tasya, so dear to God that he has the quality of Saksha Haritva, directly being the agency of God. So like this, I don't want to go through so many. Again, I wanted to keep this particular video very short. But now I'm going to address the idea that what metric should be established as to what we will feel. The verses of Sastra and their commentaries. Because if you look at any commentary on these, whether it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or any of the verses like in the Brihad Vaishnava Toshini Sanatana Goswami, Lagu Toshini of Srila Jiva Goswami, if you look in Bhakti Sandarbha about from maybe Anuchet to something going, right? All the descriptions of Guru, right? So what metric will we establish as to what is true? If somebody has a personal opinion about something, a personal reflection about something, what's the metric if I want to practice bhakti and achieve the ultimate goal of bhakti? What standard do I use to vet things as to whether they are pratikula, anukula to bhakti? This is not hateful dialogue. This is not, what is the frame that was sent to me? This is not pushback, or what was it? Lashing out or pushback, I cannot remember. I didn't digest it so much. It's none of that. Why is it not loving, heartfelt, speaking with integrity from Guru Sadhu and Sastra to address a particular presentation that itself had elements in it that needed to be addressed? There's an indication in the writing, I don't know if it was lost in translation or what, but while simultaneously declaring the author to be a devoted disciple of our Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, my own Guru Padma, it says that he asked the question to Gurudev, and Gurudev seemed to have bypassed or I don't want to misquote, so I'm just paraphrasing, overrode, bypassed, and simply gave a different explanation. So it would indicate one or two things here. Either you did not digest the answer that was given by contemplating it, by having great faith in Guru, or you actually have the feeling that Guru gave a wrong answer, or incomplete answer, or invalid answer that was in the category of like spiritual bypassing and not really dealing with the subject matter. So all of these kind of statements, they engender a natural response from those who have feelings of the infallibility of Guru. Now there's another kind of metric that's attempting to be established that says, no, bravery, integrity, vulnerability is all established in the idea of doubting these things. So let me read. I don't want to speak without reading. So give me 1 second. And I will actually read you a comment that was made regarding this, and you'll get some gist of what I'm saying. Now let me see if I can find it. Hopefully it came out here. Okay. So this was a comment in one of the threads by someone who supports the concept. I won't mention the person's name. I'm just going to repeat the statement. While we may have different opinions as to the underlying meaning of this verse, meaning the verse describing Madhavi as being one of 3.5 associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in the purport it was saying she was considered half because she was a woman. Now first I want to deal with that just slightly. If you're saying that Mahaprabhu had 3.5 intimate associates, right, and that half associate was considered intimate to Mahaprabhu, and it was in one sense saying that all the Goswamis, Sri Pundarik Vijayanidhi, Vakeshwara Pandit, Jagannananda Pandit, just unlimited associates of Mahaprabhu, among them 3.5 were intimate, and Madhavi Devi was included in that 3.5. So how could it actually even be equated whatsoever at all with the translation of half-value woman? How would you conclude, even analyzing the statement itself, that she was among the 3.5 most intimate associates of Mahaprabhu who had unlimited associates? You understand? But she was considered one of the most. Is this not glorification of the position of Madhavi Devi? So then why the word half? Because Mahaprabhu is performing sannyas lila as part of his lila, and Mahaprabhu was performing what is the ideal sannyas. So not only did he not entertain probably intimate dealings with Madhavi Devi, but neither did he want to have intimate association with Maharaj Prataparudra because he was a king. He even criticized the father and uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami because they had tendencies to be Vishayas. So anybody doing any deep analysis of Shastra would have easily concluded those things. And if you didn't, as soon as it was brought to your attention, it would be an aha moment. You understand? But unless there is a different agenda at hand. So let me finish reading this and perhaps we can give some analysis. Let me start again. While we may have different opinions as to the underlying meaning of the verse, which I just recited, in question, the main intention of sharing the article was to welcome friendliness. Now immediately it's couched again in a positive light. That it was to welcome friendliness of accepting the existence of shortcomings of pure devotees and sastra. So you want to declare simultaneously that the post was done in friendliness in order to get friendliness for accepting. Now this is not even dialogue. Now I cannot attribute this to Swami Padmanabha. He didn't say this. This is a comment by somebody in the thread. But you can see the chain of thought that could evolve from this kind of post. So he's saying, we welcome a friendliness for accepting the existence of shortcomings of pure devotees and sastra. So now again, I'm putting on the table our standard of acceptance or rejection of anything according to everything that we have understood and learned in Bhakti is Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. What is the opinion of this person supposed to be? Is it supposed to be an alternative to that? Is it supposed to be a reconciliation of the fact that we don't really have to do that? I'm so confused when I hear these things. What are we establishing? In other words, if the metric of absolutism is in Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, and you say that you're posting something, not him, not Swami Padmanabha, but the person writing, he assesses that the post was meant to welcome a friendliness for accepting the shortcomings of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. Then he goes on to say, such acceptance is not at all based on hurt or doubt. So in other words, why do we need a qualification for that? Why do we need a qualification that it's not based on hurt and doubt? Subtle psychology would say perhaps because those things are being brought up, then it's a covering of an actuality, right? But I'm not going to speculate, I'm not going to conjecture, I'm not going to impose. But you bringing up the fact that they're not being brought from that point of view, but actually on strength and courage. So here I talked about the trilogies in my former video. You can go back and look at it. When you couch language that you put a negative connotation on one element or perspective, and you enhance your own perspective by words of encouragement like courage, strength, and a deep and eternal value of vulnerability. That's called the trilogy I mentioned. Why is it a deeper sense of vulnerability to hold on to your false egoism in regard to analyzing why Guru, Sadhu, Sastra are absolute, and you feel that they're relative somehow or another, and therefore you cannot absolutely surrender because there's some vulnerability here. There's some vulnerability in terms of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. So how much more vulnerability would it take to realize Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra are absolute? And to therefore act on the principle of Saranagati to surrender Anukulyasya Sankalpa, Pratikryasya Vivajnam to that fact. Would you not have to give up your false egoism and everything else that you've used from time without any beginning as your defense mechanism in this material world, your own mind, your own intelligence, your own egoism, and your own self-perspective? Because if not, then please tell me from where this idea was gleaned. Is there another standard that we can look at to say, okay, well, he's offering an alternative standard as a metric that's absolute? You understand? Because we're looking for the absolute truth. So, is there another absolute standard we can rely on besides Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra? If not, you're almost inadvertently saying, my mind, my intelligence, my egoism is the alternative standard. This is a huge, let me go and read it. Okay, in my opinion, most organized religions have wrongly put vulnerability on the blacklist. So now that's an assumption because I don't know what metric or what, besides your personal opinion, you would glean that from. Right? We're saying the ultimate vulnerability is giving up your sense of control and false egoism, surrendering to the idea that Bhagavan is the absolute truth, his agents are the absolute manifestation of that truth. This is a huge disservice that comes with vast, dire consequences. Again, this couching of language that if you don't ascribe to this thought process and this mindset, then this is probably what has led to so many religions producing things that end up in dire consequences. The real way of love, so now he establishes the real way, which means it must be the absolute truth, but the real way of love, what metric are we using to describe your methodology is real? We need a metric. We need something that establishes what's real from what's a personal opinion, conjecture, self-conception. We need something that tells me, no, I can accept this as favorable to bhakti or reject it as being unfavorable. I need a metric for that. The real way of love is with all your vulnerability, you can still love God fully, and I still love you fully. I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China. This is not some sentimental quackery. Nobody said it was, right? So are you axiomatically putting up a defense that nobody has challenged you with, right? But ABC knowledge of the true nature of love. Again, what metric, what verse, what acharya, who has said that this line of thought is the true metric of love? Is it you? Are you that acharya? Please speak out. And again, remember, this is somebody posting. This is not Swami Padmanabha or Krishna Chandra Prabhu. This is a third-party posting. But in line with, obviously, having digested the post as being something valuable, right? Or being, I won't say valuable, because value is relative to one person to another, but in terms of how they process aligning with the post. More on the topic of infallibility of pure devotion and sastra in this article. So now the person who's posting this posts apparently an article which is present on his site, right, in which I guess he's going to delve into further ideals on this idea of the fallibility of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, or some admixture thereof between fallibility and infallibility, and how you can find the real way of love and so forth based on whatever it is he's going to present that has not been mentioned to be an absolute metric like Guru Sadhu and Sastra. So here, again, I've established this second video not as a double down on something. I feel I've already adequately accomplished an analysis of that article and what I see as some psychological impositions in the article. That part you can take as my personal perspective. But here I've offered the actual statements of Sastra. I've read commentaries on these verses. Not one of those commentaries has aligned or spoken to an ideal that was reflected either in the original author Krishna Chandra, in the post with commentary by Swami Padmanabha, or in the thread for those who align with that conception of the fallibility of Guru Sadhu and Sastra. Now, we cannot conflate, again, the unlimited amount of interactions of misapplied or malapplied bhakti, in which either guru wasn't qualified, disciple wasn't qualified, a mixture of the two were there, or there was some incoherence in the dynamics of relationship. All of that is a separate issue. But the pristine purity of our line is dependent. This is why Jiva Goswami wrote Bhakti Sandarbha as a philosophical wall around the conceptions of Mahaprabhu and the conceptions of Srimad Bhagavatam. So people can have their own perspective because this world means the freedom of the Jiva to do according to their own karmic portfolio. But it's also the duty, and it's also a loving, prayerful, hopeful, vulnerable, beautiful, graceful, and every other adjective to speak out in confirmation of those who've taken to the process and put their full faith in Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. Especially this is important because it's mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Shravan, what is this? Shravan, Bhakti Adhikari, Shravan Jan, Bhakti Adhikari, Kanishta Majam Uttam, Shraddha Anusari. Here, Sri Rupa Goswami is stating, the path of advancing in bhakti follows Shraddha, Shraddha Anusari. Therefore, Ado Shraddha is the very first thing. That first thing breaks our inextricable connection with the material energy. Shraddha Anupayani Rajam Bhakti Umukhi Chitti Vritti Visesh. That same Shraddha, when it's reposed in a sadhu, leading to Guru Padasraya Tata Diksha Shikshadi Vishrambena Guru Seva, also mentioned by Rupa Goswami. It is the methodology and the metric by which we chart our path through the stages of bhakti. Until and unless someone who is advocating this mindset can come to me with a metric, and it doesn't have to be me personally, I'm only using it as a figure of speech, but presenting to the Vaishnav Mandal a metric by which we can repose our faith absolutely in that metric. And if you suggest there is no such a thing, it's completely gone against Sadhu and Sastra, which says no. Bhagavan is saying clearly, you can, out of all the things you've experienced in this material world, which were fallible, right? Just like in Prahlad's prayers, he says that there's so many fallible soldiers. But no, you can repose fully your faith in me, Bhagavan, and in my agent, Shri Guru and Sadhu. That is our hope, that we've now found that which is infallible, pure, absolute. So now to put some doubt in that, or to put a statement that you don't offer really an alternative metric besides personal introspection, personal reflection, personal opinion, it is not something that will go unchallenged in the Vaishnav Mandal. Don't think this is backlash, hatred, lack of love, controversy, or anything else. It is loving, full heartfelt alignment with the process of bhakti for the benefit of so many devotees who have taken to this process. So if you've also aligned yourself with this process, but you have a personal reflection, then don't feel somehow or another that you need to unfriend people, or that you need to somehow or another escape into the echo chamber of your own conceptions and only reverberate with those things which don't challenge your sensibilities. I'm never unfriended anybody here or anything else unless it has become either grossly offensive or And in that case, I would suggest if it's grossly offensive, if you consider that, I'm not at all opposed. But if you simply cannot stand up to the conceptions being scrutinized according to Guru Sadhu Sastra, and you're willing to bring a template to show an alternative, then, then at this point, it's your personal choice, right? I'm speaking to all those involved in the mindset relating to the idea of Guru Sadhu and Sastra being fallible. My Dandavat Pranam devotees, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevcha, Patitanam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha.